Showtime.
Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. Ryan, Rob, thank you guys so much. Joe from ATV On Demand. Everybody, we got Ryan and Rob from BNR Motorsports. These guys are leading the way, I would say, in the GNCC, maybe even some motocross stuff with the youth ATV hybrids. And we're going to get deep into that, but let me do my housekeeping here in the beginning. As everybody knows, we always have help. Elka Suspension does an amazing job with us, building some amazing shocks, leading the industry in so many just forms of racing. And GBC Tires, they're a huge sponsor of ATV-TALK, always providing us with the best traction we can get. We also need to thank the Blunt family in Louisiana for all their support in helping us. They're going to be a lead sponsor getting us to the Legends race in Ohio this year. So we need to thank all those people for their ongoing support. But gentlemen, welcome to the morning show and ATV Talk. Um, uh, Rob, I believe I've had you on a show before. Ryan, this is your first time, and everybody knows Joe Tolle from ATV On Demand. But one of the things that we talk about, Joe and I talk about a lot, or we have on the show, is we want to talk about youth sports, bringing young people back into our industry. How can we make this happen? And BNR got brought up because you guys have a youth hybrid ATV, and we want to know more about it, how more people can get a hold of it, and what it takes to move forward, whether we're a recreational rider or a racer. Ryan, we're going to start with you, bud.
Okay. Um, yeah, so, kind of like you had said, the biggest problem I think that we have in ATV racing is, getting the young people started. You know, Guys like me and my brother and like yourself and many people out there, we've been in the sport for years and we're addicted to it. So, trying to get the young guys started and the cost of things, to build stuff is just astronomical now, especially in the youth stuff. So the idea, it came about probably 2 years ago. Um, it's taken a long time to get to where we are with it. With all the other stuff we have, still trying to run a business and be profitable. This is a venture that is not profitable yet by far. But hopefully it will be somewhat profitable in the future. And our big thing is we want to, you know, get the kids as a young customer and keep them until their adult careers. Um, the ATV idea that came to fruition was, time is money. So how can we build these efficiently and cost effectively? And that's what we really focused on doing with these was to get the price of everything down. So by having things, CNC made, quantities of stuff made, we were able to get the price of things down and offer these ATVs in various different packages. All of your 125, 250 suspension will fit onto these. So our first thought was let's build a base model that just comes with base suspension like you would buy on a Raptor 125 or a 250. Um, and that's where we started with it. And then that way, if somebody already has a suspension, they can move it from a 125 or a 250. If they want to buy it with suspension, engine mods, we do offer that as well. But our goal was to get that price point down for that first base model. We've built a couple. We're in the process of building a couple more. We're hoping that it continues down the path that we're on with it, but hopefully, you know what I mean. Like it's definitely compared to buying it piece by piece. It is around $6,000 to $7,000 cheaper than what it does is if you just sit down and buy everything part by part to put one of these together.
I got a question for you. So if we're doing that and we're saving $5,000 to $6,000, Do you know how many you have to get to like take over a production rule for AMA?
Well, production rule for AMA would be matching frame and motor. So the problem is, we are, they're Honda motors. So we're buying the Honda dirt bikes and, using the motor and the carburetor and the wiring harness and stuff. So you have to do, I think the rule for AMA is 50 to 100 or something, but they have to be matching. So like, that's a scale of something that we're not able to tackle. Obviously, at this point in time, I wish some of the manufacturers would step up and do something. There is a youth ATV that was put on. I think Dirt Wheels had it on Facebook. It was called a KO,
Hey,
uh, KO, and we've reached out to them. I mean, I know they're working on trying to get those into the States, but we told them, as an aftermarket company, we would be more than happy to support, the building suspension and doing things to get something else on there because, we don't have any options right now, unfortunately, other than, the DRRs for the young guys. But once you get, to that 8, 9 year old range, the Raptor 125, Raptor 250, I mean, they don't make them anymore. They don't exist, so yeah, no, ours is still a hybrid. It was just solely based on trying to bring some of the price down for the hybrid to at least, try to allow a few more people to be able to afford it, basically.
that is so awesome. I love it when we can still do what we love and save money. That's a great deal.
Yeah.
The KO, the fact that you guys back the KO, and Rob, I'm assuming that you're in on this as well, back in the KO, because I know that Joe and I have been talking about it for months. Um, it doesn't matter that it comes from China, is what I'm gathering from either one of you.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen one. I haven't put my hands on one. But I think there's, like if you see KTM has moved a lot of production for their use stuff to China. I think obviously would love to see the stuff made in the States and things like that. But, in today's, economic climate, it's not affordable. I mean, so I think with trying to support something that's out there, no matter what it is, if it's new, like I said, I haven't seen one, I haven't gotten to ride one or look at one in person, but I'm sure that we can make it competitive, just like we can make anything else competitive, So, I mean, we're more than open to it, if they are able to bring them in. We did reach out to them and told them that we were interested, in looking at it and helping develop it, and see what that goes. I know they're dealing with the EPA and all that stuff to be able to bring them in. So we'll see how that ends up. But yes, we need something for the youth. That's it's affordable that people can get involved in the sport.
That's awesome. Rob, I want to ask you this question. When you guys are out at the races, what is the youth crowd like for you guys?
Um, you mean like, I guess,
Numbers.
numbers wise? Yeah, I mean, so during COVID, I mean, the numbers have increased greatly, and especially if you look at what's out there on the line. I mean, most of these people are racing in the high level in the youth class on hybrid ATVs. That their parents are putting together, they're paying someone else to put together or whatever else, and it's actually very surprising to me how well that has transitioned and how many hybrid quads are out there. And the reason why is competitiveness, but also whenever we introduced this rule for the GNCC stuff, I don't know how my brother would have to tell me how many years ago that was, 5, 6 years ago, maybe more than that. We were running Raptor 125s, and then big bore them to 150s and putting 4 valve head, all this stuff. And they're an air cooled engine that people would have to tear down and replace parts, and they weren't as reliable as stuffing a stock CRF 150 motor in it, and you get way more horsepower in stock. It was way better condition, and if you modify them, it just goes up from there. So the numbers are I think pretty good in the racing career. Now, I know when we talk to the manufacturers, they say, the racing industry is only a small niche part to the overall sales. But in the racing wise, it's pretty healthy.
Yeah, I agree with the manufacturers in it, but what they're missing is the racing feeds the recreational world.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time. I mean, I'm a big Can-Am person, and I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'm a big promoter of people that promote the sports and the ATVs and stuff. So I was a big Kawasaki person. I wrote Team Green, on the V-Force and the Kawasaki, and then whenever they kind of pulled back and BRP Bombardier, and then Can-Am was going to be was feeding into the GNCC, I jumped ship, and went with Can-Am, and the reason why is I want to promote the brands that promote our sport. Because if we don't promote the brands that promote our sport, then we all lose. So these industries, and I try to talk to Can-Am and stuff, and all the manufacturers, not just them, about they're like, oh, side by sides or this, our profit margin's better on these devices. I'm like, I get that, but the problem is, and we see it as a local one, I don't know if you guys do too, is if you can get that customer when they're younger, it's easier to sell them a $50,000 UTV after you have a 10-year relationship with them or more. People don't just usually go out. I mean, there's people that do. There's not that many people that just go out and never ridden a quad, never ridden anything, and just like, hey, I want to buy that. So and that's what my lead on what my brother said was, our model is we want to be the best. We want to have, we want to keep that customer, and it's easier to keep a customer happy than just keep on going out and getting new customers. If you have a quality product and good people, we would rather just keep them.
Right. I agree. So I'm assuming you guys have both, or one of you have spoken to Honda trying to buy CRF 150 motors directly from the manufacturer instead of having to buy everything, buy a motorcycle and then get rid of the motorcycle parts.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we don't have any type of direct relationship with Honda. We have a little bit of a direct relationship with Yamaha, fortunately. Not a huge one by any means, but we do have a direct one with working with Walker Fowler and guys like that. But Honda, we really don't, other than the dealer where we purchased the bikes from has talked to his rep, and I mean it's typical. They have no interest. I mean they're making their money and doing their stuff. So you want to buy the bike, you buy the bike. Where we're fortunate is we do have a guy that buys our chassis from us. So when we buy a brand new bike, we know we're able to sell that chassis, all the chassis components back to him. And that definitely helps because it allows us to get some of the cost, back for that dirt bike whenever we do that.
Yeah, that's a tough one right there, because if you go out and buy that motorcycle, Joe and I were having a conversation about it yesterday or the day before about the cost of the motorcycle and then building the machine. It just cripples it. Joe, I was wondering if you had something to add to anything that you've heard so far.
Oh, wow. Yeah, a lot. Number one, back to Honda. And that's one thing that we as media, I know Jeff from Dirt Wheels is listening in too. And me and him sort of joined up as a tag team. He heard of my love for antagonizing the OEMs about a lack of sporty offerings. And he's like, dude, I want to play this game. So now we're ganging up on the OEMs. And, one thing I've said to Honda point blank directly at a talent event is, you guys are still making your money off our generation. I'm pushing 50. You're still making your money off of 50 and 60-year-old people who were riding your dirt bikes and ATVs back in the 90s. And of course, this is all being said after they say there's just no interest in a sport ATV. And to which, I'm saying, well, you can keep selling to the same people you sold to 30 years ago, but what do you do? What are you offering to that 21-year-old who wants in but can't afford a $20,000 to $50,000 side by side? What are you doing for him or her? what's the game plan? Because we're going to age out. And if you don't replace us, then the industry dies. And remember, number one, your industry exists off the back of blue collar workers. That's who built the motorcycle industry, aka ATV and dirt bike or side by side and dirt bike industry. And stretching a loan on a side by side to 10 years is not a solution for a 21-year-old, because if they can't afford a payment over 5 years, they can't afford a motor rebuild when it comes time. They can't afford to drop $2,500 to swap out a front differential when it blows up. So, it's pretty short-sighted on their part as the OEMs. And they're not interested. They will be people making money off of it, but where we're at is we've moved to an automotive structure of sales in the power sports industry where the dealers don't make margins on their units. They used to 20 years ago. There was some breathing room. People who walk into a dealership now and they're like, they just won't give me a deal. Well, because they don't have a margin to give you a deal. If they give you a deal, they're going to lose money on the unit, most likely. I don't know if they have any left, but whatever they have, it's not much. It used to be a lot more. On the hybrid with you guys, I heard about this like 2-3 weeks ago. I was out filming Cody Collier's number one, Can-Am 4x4. And, they were like, hey, him and his mechanic Mike are like, did you guys hear about this BNR bike? And I'm like, no. And they're like, oh yeah, they got a full bike. So, led to me talking to Lenny, who may have heard about it before I mentioned it, but I'd like to know more about the base model you guys are offering. What does it entail? Because it sounds like it's based off the Raptor 125 or 250. Is that right?
Yeah, it's correct. We have, the base model is, stock A-arms, stock shocks, just non-piggyback, no reservoir, just like if you would buy a Raptor 125. Comes with the brand new CRF 150 motor, brand new CRF 150 carb, brand new CRF 150 harness, CDI box. That all comes from the Honda. And then all the parts that we make in-house for it. We've teamed up with ATV Foreplay to build us the swing arm for them. So Tom's building our swing arms, but it's technically our swing arm. It's a little bit different than the one that he currently makes to try to get the cost down again a little bit cheaper. It comes with that. It comes with all the custom stuff we make, the Kickstarter, the radiator mounts, the radiator hoses, all the stuff that we kind of offered for the 150s that we've been building over the years. So the idea is if you buy one of these, we build one of these, and you take it home and you race it, and the kid goes through a race and a stick rips off the radiator hose. You're not on Facebook saying, anybody know where I can find a radiator hose? And people say, oh yeah, you get a 93 Volkswagen and you cut it and you put a piece in it. We're limiting that. So that way you say, oh, I ripped a radiator hose off this. Call BNR and they'll send me a radiator hose on Monday. Obviously we do all like makes and models, and we refurbish bikes, we build new bikes, we do everything. And we see countless times, we have guys that will buy, a 150 from somebody that was racing them, and they'll bring it into us over the winter break and say, hey, I'd like to have this freshened up. And then we get into it. It's like they pay $9,000-$10,000 for this thing used, and the frame's bad. This is bad. Next thing you know, they got another $8,000-$9,000 into the bike. So now they got $17,000-$18,000, and they still have a used four-wheeler. So this is, to eliminate that. Like that way, when you buy this, everything on here is new. Everything that's new is new, and then you can get it with the suspension upgrades and stuff. Or, if you already have a bike, or you could go on Facebook and buy used suspension from a 125 or 250, put it on, that's kind of where it is. And, sky's the limit. We built a lot of these 150s. We have a really good friend, Matt Pierce at Pierce Performance, phenomenal builder as well. He builds a lot of very high-end 150s. Some of these 150s, they've gotten ridiculous. You're talking $40,000-$50,000 in some of these things that are out there. And I mean, it's great for the guys that can afford it. I'm not knocking that. I mean, but where I think it really hit home for me is, I have a young son, a year and a half old boy, and sitting there thinking to myself, like, maybe he gets into baseball or something at someday, and we're having a conversation. Hopefully, he decides he wants to race. And if I'm sitting there having a conversation with the guy, and he's like, "Oh man, that your boy races. It sounds kind of cool." Like, yeah, it is pretty cool. Well, how much does one of those little things cost? Well, $30,000. I mean, he's gonna look like I'm nuts. You know what I mean? Because the cost of the barrier of cost to get involved is what we were working on. Like, I know it's still expensive, but at least like people can be like, we could afford 11, 12, 13 grand maybe to try this out, but we don't want to bite off that 30,000, to see if the kids even like it. You know what I mean? So,
And I think
So
that's what's holding a lot of the sport back is the fact that your entry level cost to go in isn't like your kid playing soccer or baseball or football. They're just, there's very little input, very few dollars down. Racing motorcycles and ATVs is a different story because there is cost to enter that realm. But usually the parents have some idea about motorsports when they're going that direction. Very seldom do you have raw parents with kids that just say, I want to go race,
sure, sure. And so I go to a ton of local events. We have lots of local events here in the Ohio, PA, West Virginia area. We go to all the GNCCs, and we go to a local, and there's a local about 5 miles from here, and I see all of these Polaris 110s, and now they have the Raptor 110. And I mean, our last race, there's 15 to 20 of these things, bone stock. And they're buying these. They're not race quads, I mean, they're single A arm, I mean, not dual A arms or anything else, but like there are people buying these things for their kids to get out and do stuff. And after that 110, there's just no, like you said, there's nothing. And the point, he was making about the Hondas making their monies on the 50s and 60, the 50 and 60-year-old guys is something that hits with us directly because we're really known as a Yamaha shop, right? A Yamaha shop, and we went to the EFI Yamahas before most of our competitors were involved in them. And one of the reasons why is because these young kids, if you go on the college A row, and the college B rows and the younger C class, these kids don't want to ride Hondas. Red's dead. You know what I mean? Like that's what, that's the hashtag. I mean, they want to ride Yamahas. Not all of them, but 95% of them, because that's what, your Bryson Neals and your Joel Hetricks and your Walker Fowlers and your Chad Wienans of the world are riding. So like you said, I mean, Honda's gonna, like, when these, guy like myself, I'm 37 years old. I mean, I'm blue, I'm a Yamaha guy. Like, I'm not gonna buy a Honda side by side or anything. And like you said, because there's so many of these manufacturers that are missing, I think, that segment of the sport,
Right. I mean, I grew up on nothing but red, and blue was never the color that any of us would choose first. But that was just our age group because everybody rode Hondas, And
Yeah.
believe it or not, as a race mechanic and a guy that was building race bikes, I've won more races with a Yamaha than I have a Honda.
And that's kind of, you say that kind of going back to one of the reasons for the having a new hybrid quad was people say, "Oh, I have a new quad. I got the motor rebuilt." No, you don't. Or they bring us a hybrid that they bought, right? Like my brother said, that cost $8,000 and want us to go through it. Well, the carburetor is worn out. This is worn out. People think that you spend, I spend $2,000, I have a new quad, and then you have to let them know, hey, the wiring harness is junk. This is bad. So you want a new quad. And I mean, and that's why the Yamahas are doing so well too. I mean, you can only piece things together so long. And going back to the hybrid quad that we have, is everything is like new. Like, you're not going to get a used carburetor, you're not going to get a used motor and a used frame, things like that. So that way it hopefully lasts you a long time too.
Well,
So
I'm sure you guys have everybody down on maintenance schedules and things like that to help prolong the life of the machine, I'm sure.
It depends.
Yeah.
Some people's maintenance schedules are once a year. Some people are a couple races. Like we don't have, we don't have a contract. Hey, you have to bring it to us every 2 weeks or whatever else. So it depends on the customer.
Well, that's what I meant. You give them the idea of what they need to do, and then it's up to them to decide
Yeah.
where they want to be. Um, what sparked such of the interest in the youth stuff from a different perspective here? We all love to talk about it, and I know that the company I work for, we shied away from it. And this is going to sound bad, but solely because the adult that was in the mix was too hard to deal with.
Oh man, that's you're 100% right on the adult side of things. It's very, we're fortunate right now. We have the YXC1 points leader at the GNCCs on the 150s. We've won a handful of the youth overalls in the last 5 years. I think we've won 3 or 4 of them. And you know what it is? It's the kids, man. Like the pure joy that they have. I mean, the parents, not all of them, some of the parents are absolutely great, but a lot of the parents they try to ruin it for them. And honestly, they ruin it for me sometimes. Like I try to go to the youth starts and wish your kid luck. And like the people that are seeing this, like I come there because even if you don't support our company and you go somewhere else, that's fine by me. Like I like to support the kids that are out there racing and make sure that they know they're having a good time. The time to stop me and talk to me about why your kid's quad isn't faster is not on the starting line. Because like you said, 100%, that does make it difficult. The reason why we focused on the kids so much is one is that's where the joy of racing is, and you see it in their eyes and in their face. It's not about results. It's not about, even somebody like myself, I've been in the industry now for over 20 years, and I deal with a lot of guys that, they do this for a living. I mean, they race four-wheelers and get paid to race four-wheelers for a living, and it's very stressful because everybody wants to do good. So like you forget that why we started in the first place, and that's where the kids are. And I think that's why we've always really wanted to focus on the kids as much as we can. In the four-stroke end of things, we're not a DRR shop. Other guys do that. That's not our expertise. We really start when you start on that 125. We're four-stroke shop. So
Rob, how does that work for you with the youth involvement?
I'm not out at the youth start and stuff as much as probably I should be, because I still raced a 4x4 pro class, so I'm trying to deal with some other things and get myself ready and things like that. Obviously, I still go out there and watch the ending, like to watch the finishes, like to see them, like to wish people good luck and everything else, and be out in the woods supporting them and talking to them. But I don't get to the line as much as I probably should be, either to wish them good luck. But like I do tell them, everyone's like, what should I do? Go out and have fun and try to finish. Things are going to happen. Push through. Like that's my advice to almost everyone that starts. Like, have fun and finish the race. If you're not doing those two, then it's not worth it. So, and like my brother said, that's the people that you like to see. The people are out there that want to have fun, and then a lot of times the results will come after that.
Right. So I want to backtrack a little bit with you guys. Joe, you chime in anytime with this one as well. Let's get a little history on you guys, and how did it BNR start, and what was the driving factor in getting the company rolling?
You want me to take this, Bert, or
Ron might well start it, because I mean he was the reason to starting it, I guess.
So, yeah, I guess I'll take it. I graduated college, worked in trucking and logistics, and I had raced at that time. I was involved a little bit here and there, but I was going to do the college thing and do the office thing and stuff like that. And after I don't know, maybe there maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that, and it just wasn't for me. I'm like, this is just not me. This is not who I am. So kind of started a shop, and it was a real struggle for a couple years. I mean, we almost closed multiple times and did something else. I was thankfully had a girlfriend at the time who's now my wife, who was very supportive of what I was doing. I was making no money. Um, but I kept getting on and getting on. And Laz Summers at GT Thunder was my mentor. Taught me a lot. My brother taught me a ton as well. Laz taught me, started teaching me suspension and different things like that. So I was very fortunate to have that relationship. His son Brandon, who was a factory Yamaha rider, was one of my really good friends. Got the opportunity to go with Team Yamaha to France for the Point de Vaux with Bill Balance and Taylor Kaiser and Brandon Summers as one of their mechanics back in 2009 when the fuel injected ATV came out. Um, and then that really kind of started pushing us along. I was a pro mechanic for Kevin Yoho, who's still one of our local champs here. Um, and we were on a budget. My brother, same thing. He was riding Can-Ams, and he got his first factory ride because his bike didn't look good, but it finished the races, and we were there to finish races, and we were doing it on a budget, and it just kind of grew from there. We were the results started speaking for themselves. um and just kind of grew and grew and grew, and kept reinvesting in the business. And now we're fortunate to say that we're in a 10,000 square foot shop, and we have state of the art equipment for the ATV industry. We're actually doing lots of dirt bike stuff now, which is a crazy thing, working with some factory dirt bike teams, just because of the equipment and the knowledge and things that we've accumulated over the years. But it all came from ATV racing and starting where we started, and just doing this for as long as we've done it. And like I said, I've been fortunate my whole life. I've had people to help me and and get me to where I am, and listen and learn. And it wouldn't be where I am without Laz, from GT Thunder, or Brandon and those guys, and me continuing on, and everybody else that's contributed to our success. But that's where we started and how we did it, honestly. So it's been 15 years now. So
Well, that's pretty awesome stuff. And you guys both have raced and both have spent time as mechanics, I'm assuming.
yeah, I still race. I don't race nationally as often. Actually, did do the Tennessee GNCC last weekend, new track. So I did actually get out there and race on that. I'm gonna do some more racing. I've been a pro mechanic for a lot of different guys, mechanics for a lot of different guys over the years, and scaling back a little bit on that now. I was working with some guys over the last few years, and still do somewhat. Like, we got guys that wash their bikes and bring them up and I prep them, but I was doing a lot of that, work. Like my buddy Mark Notman, he's Walker Fowler's mechanic, and um, I was doing a lot of that kind of work, like those guys were doing, and it it started to kind of like interfere with the rest of our business and being able to offer help to all our customers. Because like the way I base my business is, we don't base our business on 3, 4, 5 guys. We base our business on a large group. Like, we want to be able to help everybody. We want to be able to help the guy that's got the private jet, and we want to be able to help the guy that he's paycheck to paycheck. That's just how we structure ourselves. So we're still very involved with Walker Fowler and Josh Merritt and Stephen Harrell, motors and suspensions and things like that. We're constantly doing things. But I've been a mechanic and racing. I have 3 YFZs myself. Still love it. I raced 4x4s for 2 years. My brother's been a 4x4 guy forever. Wasn't my cup of tea, so I went back to the sport club, which it's worked out well, because over the years my brother's developed the 4x4 stuff, and I've developed the 450 stuff. So it's kind of been able to give us 2 paths in our business, to kind of cover both. So
That's pretty awesome. Rob, being a 4x4 racer and seeing the development of the different machines, does it, this is an odd question, but does it disappoint you that the factories aren't there in that group anymore?
Um, I don't know. I'm disappointed. I mean, it's disappointed that that we don't have competition, I guess. You know, what Can-Am has did with their company, I think is huge. I mean, if you looked in 2006, they were almost, I wouldn't say laughing, but you had a Can-Am and Barbardia, you know, you go back that far, they were nothing, you know, to where they are now. I mean, they have taken all kinds of knowledge from racing and everything else, and they supported a lot of people. I mean, like my brother said about us racing the GNCCs. I mean, that helped our shop because Can-Am really helped out supporting myself for years and other racers. I mean, there's probably in the cross country thing, I don't know if there's been another company that's helped so many people in a certain period of time to do what they want. But then when Polaris pulled out, and the side by sides is the other thing pulled out, you know, what I guess the thing is they don't, some of them don't support the sport as much as maybe they could because everyone's out there saying, hey, I ride Can-Am. Hey, I ride Honda. You know, like they tag Honda. They say, you know, that they wear Honda shirts and whatever. And Honda hasn't made a quad in, you know, multiple years. So, I mean, there's still a lot more development going on in the 4x4 stuff than there is in the sport quad side of things. You know, they've made revisions in 2009, 2012, and major revisions 2019. And then there probably will be something coming in the future. So they have revised the platforms and getting better and making, I think, a better product, you know, almost year after year. Because even in the small year change, they've made updates. And Polaris was there for a while. And then, you know, once the side-by-side kind of quit, they pulled out. So once Polaris pulled out, Can-Am, everyone races a Can-Am pretty much. So I think that's why you don't see as much support on that side, is because they really don't have to. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it back in the 2008 days whenever there was 10 semis of ATVs up there. You know, you had your KTM, your Kawasaki, all of that stuff. I mean, that would be great, especially if they were in sport and youth and utility type stuff.
So how's this going to work if Yamaha comes out with the sport 4x4? Is that going to put Ryan against Rob because Rob's riding a Can-Am and Ryan's going to ride a Yamaha?
One thing that we have done in our shop is we've always embraced change. You know what I mean? Like whenever back in 2009 with the carb bikes, everyone wanted to stay on the carburetor. And I told my brother, and he was a big component of it too, but I'm like, we have to switch to fuel injection. I'm like, that's the future. I'm like, these carburetor people are living in the past. I'm like, I'm not saying it's there yet. And maybe you get your dead engine starts, you might be last or whatever else, but that is the future. And like, we can't just walk away from it. You know, we need to embrace it. And the same thing with Can-Am. Like I said, I was a huge Kawasaki person, and we're doing a lot of Kawasaki dirt bike stuff now. And one of my friends always calls me Kawasaki Rob now. But anyways, I was a big Kawasaki person. I loved the V-Force and the Prairie. But once Can-Am came out and Kawasaki's like, we're pulling back. We're not doing Team Green stuff, and we're not going to do this. And once Can-Am said, hey, we're going to help out GNCC. We're going to help out these local series, you know, the AWARC series, all these series that they helped out at the time too to get our brand out. I jumped ship. I'm not loyal to someone. I shouldn't say it. I am loyal to someone, but only if you're going to help support the sport too.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah, I mean, it's good.
Yeah. Kawasaki they just re-released the all new Brute Force 750, which for us in the media, we're all kind of like, it's all new plastic. It's a new LED display. Like underneath the bodywork, it is the exact same Brute Force 750 that the company's produced since, I don't know, 2000. And it's proven. But you know, we see a lot of people in the comments when we test these different machines, and they're like, we wish the Japanese would build a 1 liter machine. Everybody wants a 1,000cc machine. And it seems like Kawasaki kind of missed the boat. And I'm curious of your opinion on this as a former Kawasaki guy now riding, a Can-Am and embracing that. I think a lot of us in the media kind of have the same feeling. Like if Kawasaki would have widened that machine, because this is like 46 inches wide, the competition, if you don't look at the Polaris Scrambler S or Sportsman S, which are 55-inch wide, 14-inch travel machines, in a standard width configuration, you have CF Moto that's now pushing the 50-inch mark on their 1000. The Can-Am's 48. All the Sportsmans are 48. Do you think, what are your thoughts on if Kawasaki had taken that 750 twin? Because I think a lot of us in the media feel like that's enough motor for the average guy. And I had heard of GNCC racers stepping back from the 1000 Renegades to the 850s when they still produced it because it was just a little more rideable. So what are your thoughts on if Kawasaki had taken that 750, left it a 750, but reinforced the frame, stretched it to 48, 49 inches wide, gave it more like 9, 10 inches of travel both ends, moved it into more like a modern chassis suspension configuration?
Yeah, they had like you said, the engines are very good. I mean, I switched from a 700 V Force is what I was racing, because I was originally racing the brute forces or the prairies brute forces and stuff. And then, it's more money to keep a 4-drive quad together, than it is a 2-wheel drive quad. So I switched to the V Forces, just mainly cost savings reasons why. So I don't have to have that front differentials and that type of stuff issues, and went to that. And I mean, that's 700, and I switched to the 800 Renegade. I mean, that 700 would run all day with an 800 Renegade. And you could do minor things to those 700s and the 750s and produce very good power. And so they're definitely, like you said, not lacking in the power department at all. I mean, they were far behind on fuel injection, I think, number one. I think they didn't embrace that with certain things soon enough. And then I had way more issues frame-wise and suspension-wise on the stock Kawasaki stuff than I did with the Can-Am. And that being said, even when we had issues with stuff on the Can-Am quads, they have improved. They look for the feedback, so they have improved it model. They might say, hey, we're not going to be able to get to this for 2 years, but we have it recorded. This will be fixed, where it seemed like some of these other companies didn't care. Like, I mean, the Kawasaki frames had a lot of issues, with them. The suspension's the biggest part. I think with the Kawasaki stuff, the suspension was one of the biggest things. And then I think another thing was those guys were kind of late to the power steering stuff. So late to the fuel injection, late to the power steering stuff. And the brakes on those ones were insufficient at the time too. So I think they just missed on a lot of little things, and they didn't like, hey, this is an issue. We should fix it for the next model or whenever we can. Like you said, I mean, they're basically the same platform for 10 years or plus,
When you're talking
in the chat, guys, wait a second. In the chat, they want to clarify which KFX 7. Are you talking about the KFX 700 or the utility 750 for Kawasaki?
So I've raced both. I've raced the Prairie 700 or 650. They started out, then the KFX V Force 700, and then the 750 brute forces. So I've raced like most of those Kawasaki's. I mean, they share the same engine, and they share the same engine. The V Force is 2-wheel drive, and for a while they even shared the same axle and rear end because they were solid axles on the on the Prairies and on the V Forces. Then they switched to independent suspension on the 750 brute forces. So I guess it kind of lumped them all together, but they all had the same issues.
Yeah, I got to ride the KFX 700 for a season in works, and I actually liked the machine. You had to learn how to ride it, but once you learned how to ride it, it was a great machine.
It was, the engines are very good. Same as like the Rotax, great motors. I've probably broke 5 swing arms on the KFX 700 in 1 year. But the cast aluminum swing arms, I break those all the time. The back brakes are like non-existent. The wet clutch brakes. So there was a lot of issues there. I mean, they were carbureted, not terrible at the time. They still ran good, but I think they just missed improving them, little pieces.
I agree with that. I would break the gear in the rear end. I wouldn't break the swing arm, but I'd break the gear in the rear end.
I've done, but on the GNCC stuff, we used to crack a lot of swing arms. But the Japanese makes good quality stuff, but they not for that sports side, not for that adrenaline, I don't know, fast 4x4 person or whatever else. And I think they just missed a point on all those little things. And going back maybe even to like how a lot of the people rely on the old Hondas. They bought a Honda and you bought a 450 Honda because the 300 that you had 20 years ago still runs and it works great. They didn't have issues. And I think that Kawasaki just kept on making those kind of quads for farmers and for average users. And we're like, hey, we didn't have any really major issues with them. Yeah, we have a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. Those people are only 1%. That's what I hear a lot of time from people. Well, only 1% of people race them or whatever else. But that's true. Only 1% of people race them. But that's where a lot of the problems get found. That's where a lot of the innovation happens. And that way you can, now Polaris and Can-Am are the ones that are, hey, these guys have the most technological advanced equipment out there because of those reasons.
I think that the racing develops all of it. You look at cars, all your motorcycle stuff, it all develops from racing. And that's how we've innovated so many different industries is racing this stuff. Guys, I really appreciate you guys taking the time with us. It was last minute, and that makes it even more endearing to me that you guys chose to come on. We've got off track a little bit. We started talking about the youth deals. I think that we need to do a little bit more development, and I'm gonna chime in here for ATV on Demand, because if you guys get him one of those machines or work something out with him, he would be more than glad to platform it on UTV on Demand, because we always want to produce more for the youth that we can. I don't have a great platform for it, but he does. And I think that if you guys would work with him and work together to do that, it would benefit both of you greatly. Sure. I'm not saying that I'm not interested, because I am. I just don't have the same reach, being that I'm in California and you guys are in Ohio.
Sure.
It makes it difficult for us.
If I can chime in and platform Dirt Wheels Magazine, I was talking to Jeff this morning before the show, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just let it be known now that, like, when they're available for viewing or for potential testing, like, I obviously want to film it and do a video on it, because anything to promote sport quads at this point, if it were any other segment, it's like you're going to write a check. Well, not to test a unit, but for product stuff. But I mean, for something like this, it's, when it comes to sport quads, it's about love, and we have to do something to revitalize the segment. So I'm totally down to film it. I know Dirt Wheels would like to do a feature on it, so media is waiting.
Yeah, sounds good. Absolutely.
That's where we all work together. I have a great relationship with the guys at Dirt Wheels. I have a great relationship with Joe. And some people go, well, you guys are media, you're competing. No, we're not competing. We are trying to promote the sport because we love the sport. And most people don't understand that I started as a little kid getting a ride on an ATC 90. And that's where it started. My dad was a certified Honda mechanic, and we rode the three-wheelers, the whole three-wheeler era. And then a company was 4-stroke, then we were 2-stroke. Now we're all of it. And I can't see myself doing anything else, and this is all based on passion and enthusiasm for ATVs. Some people misconstrue some of the stuff that I do, but it's all about the growth of the industry. Yeah, I want to promote the company I work for too, and yes, I'm biased and prejudiced like we all are. But you know, if I can reach out to somebody like Rob, you and Ryan, and help you guys promote the youth, because it's not something that I do. Even if I was doing it, I'd still want to promote you, because there's not enough people doing it, and I really respect the fact that you guys are putting it out there. And Ryan, I even respect it more because you say it's not a profitable portion of the business, and I can see that. It's tough.
Yeah, it's not. I guess I just, like you said, we started as those young guys, right? And my dad wasn't into the racing thing. It was my brother and I got into it, and like we had to figure it all out on our own. And like, we're still, in my mind, we're still those poor 6 guys piling in a truck to go to the races because everyone's splitting fuel. And like, it's just in my heart, like I love the sport. And, sure, I could be like, yeah, we only build $50,000 hybrids. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, we build some of those, but there's enough of those guys out there that are building those. And like, we understand like what fun is it if, there's 2 guys on the gate, you know what I mean? Like, and let's be honest with ourselves. If we continue to go with the increase in prices that they've gone over the last 5 to 6 years, there's going to be a point where that's what's going to happen. Guys can't afford to get on the gate. So that was the biggest part of it for us, is just trying to keep people in the sport, because people come and go in the sport. And then you have the lifers, that like us, that stay in it forever. And that's our number one thing, is just try to get people, to love what we love, you know what I mean? And try to do it somewhat affordably. I mean, I know it's never going to be completely affordable, but at least not make it insanely expensive.
And kind of going back to like the blue collar people that just work their jobs, want to do well, and then go out and have fun, and that's the people that you want to line to go up against. I mean, we've met so many great people, but through this industry and through the races, that they're all hardworking individuals basically that just want to enjoy the same sport that you want to do. And there's nothing greater than that. I want to see more people do that.
Exactly. That's so awesome to hear. I'm going to go through all 3 of you. I have a question, and everybody's going to have a different opinion, and we're just going to run with that. And I'm going to start with you, Ryan. What do you think is causing the growth in the GNCC series versus MX and like the off-road desert industry in the West Coast? Why is that GNCC platform growing when the others are either leveled or not growing?
Well, I don't think that I can comment on the desert thing because I don't know enough. I was out there for a works race with Walker a year or so, 2 years ago. We're actually doing Vegas to Reno this year, so I will be there, but I don't know much about that, so I wouldn't want to comment. Now, the ATV motocross, I can comment for sure on. Around us, we have lost about 3 tracks. We used to have a few motocross guys that we worked with, and we still have a couple national guys, but we have lost most of the local motocross tracks around us for 4-wheelers. They have kicked the ATVs out. One of the places, Malvern Motocross, huge place, huge following. They actually just sold to the landfill. And there's no ATV or no motocross there at all anymore. I think that, the local scene being so poor, most people start at locals, right? They don't just wake up and say, I'm going to drive to Texas to race quads today. Like, that's crazy, So I think with not having the local scene to feed into the national scene, that's really affected the turnout. Our local scene for hare scramble, GNCC style racing, over here is huge. Our local series is absolutely insane how many locals we have. And I think that's really what has fed to the Nationals doing as well as they have. You know, we just had Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and we have a group message with a bunch of us that riders and racers and Johnny Gallagher from GBC and stuff that's in there. And we always talk, and, you know, that was the best ATV turnout of the year so far. And it might be the best, you know, that we have until Ironman. You know, so people have the passion for it. They want to get out there and do it. And I think a lot of that is because the local series are doing well and they're feeding riders into the national series, where the ATV motocross just doesn't seem to have that right now.
I agree. Rob, what's your opinion on that topic?
I think I have a little bit different one. Like I said, I don't know the desert stuff or the motocross stuff as much, because I mean, you don't really motocross the Can-Am quads as much. I used to go to the indoors and do a couple of that, but I think that kind of where I came from racing, it was we used to go to Hatfield McCoy or go up to Marionville Trail in Pennsylvania and go to national parks and just to ride our quads. And the issue is there's a lot of two ways. You know, you have these fast 450s or fast Can-Am quads or things like that, and you want to go fast on, but there's two people coming head at you. I mean, that's not that much fun, obviously, or you're getting yelled at because you're going too fast if you're passing people or anything else. So we got started, and I really got started because I just wanted to ride my quad in different places. And then racing locals, you know, like, hey, it's racing, but I mean, I started at first in utility class in the back of the line, and I was like, I'm just there to ride the quad. And then my brother raced, and if he got stuck or broke, whatever else, I could pull him back or see him or anything like that. So we started going to these things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it's just fun. You know, ride for 2 hours. You have friends there that are doing the same thing. Everyone's going the same direction. There's an ambulance there. There's safety staff, you know. And then we looked up and like these nationals, I could ride my quad in sand. I could ride it in the ski resort. You know, just being able to enjoy it in different places. And I don't think you get that in motocross as much because the tracks aren't like the terrain's not, it's, you know, natural. So you don't see that, and you don't race as long. And maybe it's the intimidation factor for a little bit, because you do see like people new to sports, they don't leave the ground. So they're thinking that, oh, you know what, the XC stuff is going to be easier too. So I think it's a lot of that. And, you know, again, maybe you can't trail ride them as well as you would like to because there's not as many spaces to do that. So instead, coming to a race that has a trail that you could ride on.
That's awesome. Joe, what do you think?
I think I agree with a lot of these guys' points. You know, it's cross country is more relatable for a trail rider. You know, it's a lot different. You know, if you're a trail rider and you and your buddies like, I bet you can't jump that creek. I bet you I can. Well, okay, that translates over. So I think there's a lot of ability between trail riding and cross country racing versus, you know, I bet you can't blitz those whoops and hit that 120-foot triple. You know, that's a little different. It's a little scary. I think that's part of it. And then like Ryan was saying, like where we're at here in Ohio, you know, you've got an Indiana cross country series, a Kentucky cross country series, an Ohio cross country series. I'm sure other states surrounding have it. I know, you know, up in PA, that's a really big state for ATV. So you've got series kind of running in local areas here that have good turnouts and good support for cross country racing. And, you know, you also have a lot of pros at cross country that live in these areas. So on off weekends, when there's not a national, you might see a top 3, top 5 guys show up at your local track. Now you're talking to a national pro at the local track. You know, maybe you become fast in the local series and, you know, hey, I'm an A-class champ locally. I need to drop back to the B class and race nationals. I don't know if that's legal or not. It should be, because if you're the local A rider, you are not an A rider at the national level. Just my opinion. But then, you know, so I think that's part of it. And then I think, although you're gonna probably spend, okay, I don't know about spending budget to maintain the bike over the course of the season, but cross country bikes tend to spend a lot more time on the track in more adverse conditions. They see more mud, for longer periods of time. So there's a maintenance thing, but the buy-in to participate, I think, on a sport quad for the average guy is a lot more affordable in cross country, because if you're getting started, if you go to the nationals and you're in the C class, you're going to be racing against guys that have $7,000 motors, whether they need them or not. I know a kid right now who's racing Pro-Am, and I think his dad told me the other day he has $10,000 in that YFZ 450 engine. YFZ 450R, it's a fuel injected bike. But to get going in cross country racing, like as soon as we're done wrapping up our little 400EX, just how to go buy a bike and fix it up and what's it cost kind of thing, make it reliable. We're looking at this 400EX now, like, well, I have 2/3 of a race bike here. I do a little suspension work and a couple other little things, and I could go cross country race this bike, and to get started in cross country racing, it's just it's much more affordable because it's a 2-hour endurance race. It's not a sprint race. You can't hang on to a 60 horsepower 450. The average guy can't for 2 hours if the motor will live that long, built to a motocross level. So less horsepower. You don't have to spend as much to make a competitive bike, especially when you're just starting out. Because, if you're racing locally and you're just getting started, you're not racing beginners at the national level that are already fast, so the buy-in is just so much more approachable. And then the last point is everybody at the nationals, if you're going to race motocross, you're going to go race a 450. And if somebody said to me, like, Joe, I want to try ATV racing, what's the most affordable thing I can do? I'd be like, well, go buy a 400EX, throw a few parts at it, toughen it up, put a kill switch on it, and go race. You're going to have a good time and you're going to beat some people. You will not see somebody doing that at an ATV motocross national, just too boutique, and it's too much monkey see, monkey do. You can race almost anything in cross country locally and have a good time.
And that's really what it's all about is in some ways we've lost touch with the fact that we're supposed to have a good time doing it. It's all about fun. Not every one of us is going to make millions, racing ATVs or win the trophy and get to take the photo with the trophy gal. But we all can go out and have a good time. Again, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the morning show, especially last minute. I'd like to reach out to each one of you to come on the audio show and sit down and talk about your racing career and how you developed yourself in the ATV industry. If you wouldn't mind, I'll send you information that way.
Sure.
Joe Tolle from ATV On Demand. Thank you again. Always a pleasure. And if you guys have anything that you need help that ATV-TALK can do for you, please reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to promote anything, especially if it comes to the youth quads, or if you're having a ride weekend and you need extra banners out there on your social media. We will be more than glad to help you any way we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And in the chat, we need to thank Mr. Beans or MX Beans for coming and talking. Square One, Dirt Wheels, everybody in the chat. We want to thank you so much for joining us. And guys, keep up the good work and keep taking care of the youth of the sport, because without people doing that, we're not going to be here in a few years.
Sounds good. Will do.
Yep.
All right. Everybody enjoy your Sunday. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.
Bye.